Picture this. You arrive in Prehevero. Amongst a group of 13 other people, confusion is rampant. Around you, thick fog surrounds the city, blocking access in and out. And worst of all, it seems that the passengers on the train can't seem to agree on the best course of action going forward. Some wish to stay, others wish to explore. Yet most confusing is the ability to attack people right from the get-go, something you choose against thanks to your morals. Heading northwest, you discover Tunnel 7, as well as a beta, which seems to be looking for train parts. Atmosphere dissuades you from entering the tunnel, however. You push forward, discover the mayor's mansion, and even find a small house to rest. In the basement, a new mechanic for leveling up offers you the ability to acquire magic and skills. You try reveal aura, yet upon use, nothing shows up. So instead you decide to save. Time advances. You head back into the mansion and Henrik is nowhere to be seen, replaced with an oddly familiar looking monster. Taking the advice of the butler, you avoid hurting the creature's fragile ego, and manage to peacefully acquire one of the 2 keys needed to access the inner city. Yet out of curiosity, you decide to check your map again, remembering the new spell you acquired. 2 blips, one over the mansion and one over Tunnel 7. You take a moment to think, and suddenly it hits you like a truck. The true horror of this game. Unaware of when and how contestants return, you're left with an extremely difficult choice. To murder your fellow survivors at the expense of your own humanity and potential allies, to play into the game maker's hands, or to allow the game to progress with your morals intact. Each tick of the clock potentially causing a new mini-boss to spawn. Termina is upon us. There's something about the design of Fear and Hunger that really immerses the player, whether it's difficult enemies that look so unnatural, whether it's being lost in the city, not knowing where to go or where to progress, sometimes using the wrong bandage that can result in an infection and you having to lose an arm, or maybe even just the fact you didn't save, you push forward, trying to take on just one more enemy and realizing you lost the last 2 hours of progress. But there's nothing quite as surreal as the music in Fear and Hunger. Green Hue Moon is the most iconic track of Fear and Hunger 2 Termina. At least I would argue that. It's what plays whenever you progress through the day, whenever you save, whenever you meet Percolay and notice that strange yet familiar face watching over you in the sky. It's a reminder that the old gods have abandoned us. It's related to the green hue after all. It's the substance we see in Mahabare and on the moon when you complete one of the endings in the first Fear and Hunger game. And it's a reminder that the gods are something that we're not meant to grasp. We're not given all the details. We only know bits and pieces of fleeting and old dying information, different interpretations from different cultures. But at the end of the day, no one really knows what the old gods are or what they're meant to be and represent. Are they a force of good, a force of evil? Maybe they stand above it all and aren't limited by human concepts of morality. The point is, the track Green Hue Moon is mysterious, it's distant, it's a chance to stop and think, breathe. It's a time to reconsider any choices you've made or any progress you might have not made. It's a reminder that Rare is always watching. Whether he's truly here or not isn't important. The actions of his followers and the actions of those looking to abuse the position of the trickster god have now driven you here, and no matter what you do, you can't escape it. Unlike many of the other tracks, Green Hue Moon is not something you can avoid. You're going to hear it at least once in your playthrough, and if you're an average player like me, you're going to hear it a lot. The track Green Hue Moon is therefore different, but also similar to the one you hear at the end of Ending A. That one is a lot more starry. It's also distant and surreal, but it's a lot more welcoming. It's void, it's nothing. It's as if you've become part of something greater, by humanity and for humanity. It's a way of escapism, something that the Green Moon does not provide, but it does avoid the condescending gaze of the old gods. It doesn't make you feel like you're part of something lesser. It makes you feel like you've ascended into something bigger on a cosmic scale, something that rivals the old gods perhaps, but whether that's a good thing or not is ultimately up to the player to decide. Of course, there are other ways that Fear and Hunger 2 sets the tone and atmosphere for the player. Once inside the city, you might find yourself listening to Old Town Tourist, the name implying that we're foreign, not from here. Yet, tourist has a positive connotation. We're not here out of our own free will. We're not here to enjoy the old buildings and old architecture. But we're not really meant to be here, and that's what the soundtrack really captures. We're not from around here. We're not like the people that live here. The ritualistic sacrifices, the constant murders, the strange festival that pits everyone against one another. Everything is different. It's odd, it doesn't function in the same way that you understand society to be. The music really plays into that. You hear wind, you hear emptiness, the foggy streaks surrounding you, the cries and wails of despair in the distance. It's not meant to make you feel welcome. The emptiness in the track really highlights that too. It's like no one wants to come out and greet you. People might be watching from the windows behind closed curtains, but the only people you're going to run into are those that want to kill you. Likewise, Ashes of War paints an image of the town that we're visiting. As the name implies, perhaps the town hasn't quite recovered from the Great War, the ashes so to speak. You see it in the crumbling buildings, the broken infrastructure. Everything's run down. Cars and suitcases litter the streets, as if abandoned by people that desperately try to flee or desperately found themselves stuck within the festival. It's no surprise that religion seems to haunt a lot of the places here. The people here have clearly suffered a lot, and that desperation bore fruit to the dark practices that we see. People clearly turned to religion and to the church for help when the government seemed to be failing them, when the horrors of war were still fresh in their minds, and yet that immediate need for comfort amidst a government that has failed them has led to a perversion of something sanctious, something holy. Osa implies as much in the cathedral when he speaks of Ormo being different here compared to his homeland. And therefore Ashes of War is just that. It begins normal, a reminder of what the people had before the war. Something that sounds like an ordinary radio song quickly becomes drowned out by the sound of marching footsteps. And the song only seems to grow heavier, darker, more distorted. Clearly, the war has never left their minds, neither has the occupation, both literally and figuratively. Through the environment, we're told the story of the people living here, and we're given the pieces to figure out why Prahevil fell into the state it did. Yet there's more to the music of Fear and Hunger than just environmental storytelling. Both Fear and Hunger 1 and 2 are difficult games. Anyone that has played at least 5 minutes of either can tell you as much, though both games set tone in different ways. The first game accomplishes this through ambient sounds in its music, dripping water and creaking stone, making the dungeon feel alive and real. The tension is formed from our psyche as people, as we're given familiar sounds that purposefully make us feel out of our depth. On the other hand, Fear and Hunger 2's music is closer to a traditional video game soundtrack, although I'd argue that remnants of the same design philosophy from the first game remain, which overall causes a step up to the player experience. Both games perfectly create tension in their own respective ways, though the focus on the inherent human struggle against the forces of nature in the first game fit its themes more, whilst Termina opts to twist sounds and noises that would usually bring us comfort, making something familiar feel abnormal and out of place. And yet, both games managed to pull off the same feeling of relief after hours of struggle and failure. I distinctly remember my first ever playthrough of Fear and Hunger 1. There's something I refer to as the chair room. It was just a few brief seconds to stop, breathe, and yet, through it, I was put into the shoes of my character, the heavy feeling of regret and fear looming over me. Why hadn't I already left the dungeon, and when would it end? Somehow, a single chair in a room tucked away was my only safe haven from the horrors outside. Frankly, I never thought Termina would be able to capture that same feeling. And yet, as I found myself wandering through the ruined streets of Prahevil, I was shocked. Not only had relief come, it had blown away any and all preconceived notions that I had from the first game. Lost Haven, the name of the soundtrack that plays whenever you enter the Prahevil Bop, a fitting name all things considered. It's what once kept the underground safe, the rebellion fighting against the government and the war, and now keeps you and the other characters safe from the horrors outside. I know I mentioned the Green Hue Moon was a time to breathe, a time to think, and I still stand by that. But the Prahevil Bop truly offers a moment of respite that the tower with portray and red doesn't. After all, can you truly rest when the game makers are right in front of you, when that moon is staring, watching your every move? It's not a chance to breathe in the traditional sense. It's like being in the middle of a stressful exam and turning the page, thinking about the question. You haven't truly escaped what's stressing you out. You've just been given a moment to reconsider your choices. But the Prehevel Bop isn't like that. It's a true form of escape. It's the reason Lost Haven is the only soundtrack that feels welcoming and homely to the player. It's a place to unwind and truly feel safe. We as humans are very limited in our capacity to deal with stress, and in a game that constantly throws danger after danger after danger at you, the Prehevel Bop is the hand that lifts you up, that keeps you moving forward. It's that break you need to unwind, truly unwind, not just to pause and think, but to de-stress. Many times I've found myself sitting in the Prehevel Bop watching characters talk and communicate with each other, or just listening to the music and trying to relax. It once served as a safe place for the rebellion against the war, the tyrannical government, and now it serves as a safe place for you as the player. But it also touches upon some of the themes of the game, which I think is quite interesting. Escapism specifically. Escapism is a powerful tool that can help us deal with the harshest of circumstances, but if you find yourself relying on it too much, if you find yourself spending too much time in it, it might just have the opposite consequences. And I think that's exactly one of the themes that Fear and Hunger 2 tries to tackle. Whether you look at the logic ending, whether you look at the fact that your limited resources will eventually run out, and you can't just idle and linger in the one safe space the game provides you. You have to push forward. You have to deal with your traumas and problems face on. And that's really the crux of the game, both the first and the second game in fact. It's about managing your resources, not just food and sanity and party members, items, ammo, things like that. It's also about managing your time, how you use it, and how you deal with the problems that you have to face. You can't just linger in one place for too long. You can't escape for the rest of your life. You have to push forward. That's part of the human struggle, and I think Fear and Hunger perfectly encapsulates that. Fear and Hunger 2 is a complete step up from its predecessor when it comes to characterization, but I think the first game still has a lot of heart and soul, and we can learn a lot from designs of enemies to the designs of the new god forms when it comes to the different characters and what's going on in the dungeon. For instance, when you begin a playthrough of the first game, you're met with 4 choices, that being the 4 different characters that represent 4 different classes. Kahara, in a traditional fantasy sense, is the cutthroat rogue, the person you shouldn't trust, the liar, and in a sense he very much fits that archetype. He has a lockpicking and a stealing skill. His first interaction with you when you're not playing as him is robbing you and leaving you, abandoning you. Yet the game makes it clear that he's a product of his surroundings. At the end of the day, out of all 4 characters, he has the saddest ending. He sacrifices himself for humanity, or more specifically, for a girl that he didn't really seem to know. He's the only real source of kindness that she experiences, at least canonically, and out of all 4 characters, he seems to be the least selfish. I mean, his desires stem from the lack of family he's had all his life, and his desire for a family, to be with someone he loves. The woman he impregnated being a prostitute, at a time where the game is set in, he could have easily ran away and never looked back, and society never would have faulted him for it. It's not like prostitutes were looked upon in a fond light, and yet his S ending, despite having the least continuity out of the 4, ends up being the most wholesome. It's just him retiring and settling down with his wife. It's no surprise then that the new god forms, or the ascended forms of the 4 characters, each of which represent a fundamental and core representation of the person that had ascended, represents almost no change. It's Kahara, but his family crest has been carved into his chest, a symbol of his longing for a place with people that love him and he loves, and his face is dark and gloomy. He's lost, pursuing something that he'll never be able to achieve. In the second game, Miro took a step up in this approach. He added actual dialogue between a wide range of characters, unique interactions that can happen when you progress the day and go to different areas at different points in time. Certain characters will fight and kill each other. You can't control everything, at least not in your first playthrough. It makes the world feel very lived in. And yet, the most interesting to me still remains the moon scorching, a phenomenon by Rare that is meant to reveal the true nature of humans, those scorched by his moonlight. It's an inversion of our deepest fears and regrets, and whether or not it is the true self is up for debate. Nevertheless, moon scorching does reveal a lot about the characters. We can learn a lot from the designs, and that's really the beauty of it. The most prominent and best example of this, I would argue, is Cocoon, which is Marina's moon scorch form. Now, Marina was my first character that I played, and I would argue my favorite. She was assigned the male gender at birth during a time where concepts of gender and sex weren't necessarily split, but her mother hid her because of the practices of the church, that being that firstborn sons would have to enter the dark priesthood, and she would have to enter after her father. Now, over time, wearing female clothing and behaving feminine seemed to come natural to her. It became a part of her, and she realized that's who she truly was. Yet, her father didn't seem to see it that way. At least on the surface, that's the relationship we're given. Marina clearly has a lot of gripes with her father. There's a lot of stress and tension in their relationship. Yet ultimately, he is the reason she returns to Prahival, a town that he himself states that she has no reason to return to. And most interesting is the final interaction the two have in the church after Samari stabs him. Father Domek initially misgenders Marina, but as he's bleeding out, he starts referring to her as a girl, a woman. He says, "Stupid girl, why did you come here? You shouldn't have come here, the letter should have been just that." Perhaps then Miro was just trying to highlight the tense nature of their relationship. Yes, Father Domek mistreated her, and she hates him, but at the end of the day, they are still father and daughter. He chooses to accept her for who she is in the end. He wanted her to stay safe, and so his transphobia is rooted in the church, the outdated practices that he's been tied down to all of his life. It's not something he necessarily believed in, at least not deep down, but it's something he ended up doing. It doesn't excuse him as a character, don't get me wrong, but it does show that the possibility for something healthier was there. This seems to be further touched upon by Marina in the basement of the church after fighting Samari's Moonscorch form. The fleshy pillar that you see is the end point of Marina's father. Marina, rightfully so, goes into outrage talking about how much of a filthy and disgusting person he was, how much she hates him, how much she wanted to get her anger out, but she never could. She even goes so far as to say that she wished she could have been the one to finish him off. Yet there seems to be more emotion behind those words. She speaks in a very emotive fashion. The words coming out of her mouth aren't necessarily what she means, and you can see that the longer the run goes on, the more her voice trails off, and ultimately it results in her going silent and running off. She needs space for herself to think about what has happened. It's clear that her father has hurt her. It's clear their relationship had soured many years ago, but there was still familial ties there, and I think the depth of that is really nicely highlighted here. These interactions serve as a basis, a foundation for Marina's deepest and darkest secrets, her anxieties, her fears, her regrets, and the mood scorching inverses those outwards. It hides the best parts of her and shows the world the worst parts of her. Cocoon, therefore, is just that. It stands elevated and above Marina, leashing her like a dog, controlling her every move and life. We know from dialogue in game that inside the cocoon is her father, or at least a mental representation of who she thinks her father to be. His position elevated over her, clearly showing the power dynamic and control he has over her life, even when he's passed away and even when he isn't directly present, and further plays into her dysphoria and her gender identity. After all, her head now grows from between her legs, the place where her genitals should be. Coincidentally, that's also where the leash is connected to her head, which is where her groin is located. It's the focus of her life. It's the focus of the relationship between her and her father. It's what has strained the two of them, and yet dialogue from the fight when speaking to the cocoon shows that she's listening to him, perhaps showing that somewhere deep down she desired for a strong and healthy relationship with her father, and in turn for her father to accept her for who she was. Of course, there are many more forms that can be analysed in both Fear and Hunger 1 and 2, from Tarnica quite literally smashing through the glass ceiling, a whip in his hand for self-flagellation, and a posture colour showing the strict upbringing he's had to follow, and the mentality to always grow and grow better, the burdens of the expectations placed upon him constantly eroding his mind. From Marco's bully form and how he views himself as a result of his past as a boxer, to the weeping scope, Levi never escaping that sniper rifle, the life as a soldier that he's had, the war has never quite left him, just as it hasn't left Brahibel, and even Karen's form as the Valkyrie, a representation of her duties as a war reporter, watching horrors from above and carrying the voices of the unheard on her back, those affected by warfare and the horrors of it that otherwise would have their stories go unheard. For the sake of runtime and to keep the video more digestible, I won't go into more detail on each and every form from both games. But if you are interested in a more detailed analysis, I can recommend you 2 videos. The first is The Law of the Moonscorch forms by Omniworld. It goes into a bit more detail of what moonscorching is, and then goes into a breakdown of each and every moonscorch form in game that we currently have. The second video is called Fear and Hunger: The Lie of Ascension, a video by Lucky that goes into more detail about the new god forms of each character from the first game, as well as the lies that come with ascending into a new god. And now we arrive at the last part of the video. Logic, the ending of the game, or one of the endings at least. Logic is a inversion of the God of Fear and Hunger. They both serve as ending A's for their respective games, and they both serve as a driving force for humanity's efforts, something that will propel them forward, although one is distant and cruel, hence the God of Fear and Hunger. The other is empathetic, it's closer to humanity. We see as much with the soundtrack, Unknowable. It's a god, it's something beyond us, and yet the sound of Industry is an instantly recognizable sound to anyone from any walk of life. Unlike the God of Fear and Hunger, Logic has a human face. It is filled with people, it's filled with empathy, and it's something that draws us in. Yet, humanity isn't a limiting factor for Logic. It's not like the new gods, and it's not like Ulma and the God of Fear and Hunger either. It hasn't taken over the spot from one of the old gods and filled in the gap. It's not a pure force in the sense of detachment. It's not indifferent. And we know it rivals the power of the old gods simply because of the soundtrack. Just listen to this leitmotif. It's the same set of notes that play in Mahabre streets. It's a sign that humanity has finally reached godhood without abandoning their sense of self, and Logic is just a manifestation of that. And therefore Logic is not like the God of Fear and Hunger, despite the parallels to ending A of the first game. It is different. It's the reason why the symbol of Logic is an inverse of the God of Fear and Hunger, whereas the God of Fear and Hunger took its symbol from the God of the Depths. The artificial green is therefore humanity's own green hue, and the City of Gods is now fully realized. Although no longer does it draw in the lust of men for power, no longer does it trick humanity into an endless cycle of repeating despair. Mahabre, or Logic's own variation of Mahabre, now serves as a safe haven for humanity, a form of escapism. It connects us all. Logic is, after all, the manifestation of the Age of Information, just as the God of Fear and Hunger was a manifestation of the Industrial Revolution. Although we're not told the exact nature of Logic, I believe Logic is not like the Ascended Gods. It doesn't seem to fill in the same position as the God of Fear and Hunger and Ulma. It doesn't take over old positions that the old gods have left behind. Instead, it replaces them with something more human, more grounded, yet on the same level. We see as much in the second phase of the boss fight. The Hand of Creation and the Hand of Destruction replace Grogorov and Sylvan. Closer inspection also seems to show the new gods, or what I think are the new gods, their desire to move away from the power of the old gods and to propel humanity forward by their own measures finally realized. Closer inspection of Logic's face reveals not only a human face, but also circuitry, a microchip design of some sort on the cheek, and the cube of the depths stuck in the middle. Noteworthy is Vanishka's symbol being crossed out, perhaps implying the rejection of nature and humanity's desire to rise above it. Vanishka is a child of the old gods of creation and destruction, yet Logic is a child of humanity's efforts, taking over both of those domains and making it something for humans to control. Yet I'm not convinced that logic is the good ending that it may appear to be on the surface. The ending has you enter into the artificial green, you merge with the nothingness, you merge with the collective human consciousness, and by the end of it all you seem to have achieved peace, but at the expense of your individuality and who you are as a person. Logic therefore touches upon something that I mentioned earlier in this video, escapism. It is a force for good in the sense that escapism could be a force for good. It seems to bridge the gap between people just as the age of information has done so. We've connected with so many people around the globe. Yet Miro has also stated that there's a good chance people won't like the next Fear and Hunger game. And if I had to make an educated guess as to why, it would be because of the kind of message it's trying to portray. The gameplay of Miro's games closely resembles the themes he's trying to portray, and therefore if he were to tackle the Age of Information, I could imagine it being done in a few different ways. Perhaps he'd make the game a lot easier, the hard content gated by your own desire to choose to go and see it, but knowing most players, they would choose the easy and comfortable option. It would be representative of the themes, but it wouldn't really solve the problems that the game was trying to portray. It wouldn't be satisfying or stimulating. There are also the immediate downsides of the Age of Information. A lot of us have grown detached from outside life, whether through a fault of our own or government policy isn't important, and this detachment has also led to the breeding of a lot of echo chambers. People too comfortable with life that seem to think they have a better vision for the world without understanding why or how we've ended up where we are. As we know from the first game, it was fear and hunger that moved humanity forward. The desire for food and the fear that their life would come to an end, the fear that they would go back to darker times. And without those struggles pushing you forward, without goals to overcome, where do we end up as people? Therefore, maybe the true downfall of logic won't be free will or anything like Evangelion. It'll be complacency, the cyclical nature of humans and our inability to look back and learn from the past. And thus, logic is a wake-up call, not to the people in game, the characters, but the player controlling them. A game that constantly pushes you to keep moving forward, to not stop. Sure, you can take healthy breaks, but it's important not to stagnate for too long. Therefore, logic cannot be the final destination of humanity. There are many more battles to win, many more battles to fight. That's part of the human struggle, and it's what fulfills us, it's what allows us to grow, it's what allows us to stay healthy. Running away forever won't fix the problems, and hiding away inside a stream of consciousness certainly won't either. I'd like to finish the video off with a quote by Tony Benn. "There is no final victory, as there is no final defeat. There is just the same battle to be fought over and over again." If you've made it this far into the video, thank you for sticking by, and if you enjoyed it, I would always appreciate if you share it with a friend, or even just leave a like or a comment. And of course, please make sure to leave your thoughts down in the comment section below. There are segments of this video that don't use my own footage, and therefore I will leave a list of videos that I used in the description. Last of all, I hope you had a good time. I certainly did making this video and interacting with the comment section in my last one, so if you haven't checked that out already, I do recommend it, assuming you're into Arknights or just want to try something new.